we will be presenting each session, then having a question and answer period after each of the sessions of the presentation. So please use the chat, please raise your hand, and we'll come to your question and answers either online or here in person at the end of each session. As I say, please use the microphones if you can. What else? If you need more general information or if there are any references to other documents, etc., you should be able to see those online. Thanks to everybody on the team who's helped prepare this meeting. But in the first place, then perhaps I can just briefly hand over to João or to Guido to say a few words of welcome from your side as well.
So, welcome, Cinea, and the project officer. Salima, the people, difficult work.
Can we try the microphone just
Over.
I took over from Salima, so she did the difficult work, so I get to do the nice part of seeing the results. About the LeMesurier, from my point of view, it's all about coordination. It's all about stopping fragmentation, which is a key point on this work. So there are a lot of KPIs in the partnership, complex KPIs. We have a lot of projects, each one producing their own KPIs. Connecting these two different sets of data, it's a quite challenging problem and a very important one, because the results and the frameworks made in this project will not only allow us to measure success, but also provide baselines for future work, common baselines. And frameworks like the ones made in the project, they unify and they bring commonalities together, and will also allow for the future, for projects to measure their own progress in a way that is aligned with each other and aligned with goals. So it will, all the complex work of bringing all these APIs, all this together, will be facilitated for the future. So if you have this framework from the beginning, means that you'll be able to measure your progress, which will allow you to take informed decisions. Where should we invest? What is going well? What is going wrong? So I think the key point of such work is to have a solid, technical base, an objective measurement framework to ensure that we can take informed decisions. So we will better know where we are. We will know how to get to where we want to go, but we'll also be able to take informed decisions to see where we actually want to go and what can we do to get there. So this translation of very different points into common and alignment will really support the future work of partnerships, of automotive R&D, to try to be more competitive, to try to be more consistent, and to be more resilient in this very complex world we are in and facing the dual transitions for the automotive sector. So I think it's really key to try to find a way to measure, evaluate, that will help us to define our next steps. So that's how I see the work of LeMesurier.
Great, thank you very much. Other opinions? Guido, maybe. Your colleague has passed you the microphone.
Different one, I guess, but I just wanted to thank you. Well, you know, as we were saying with Stefan a few minutes ago, this was a long process to get this project approved, also long discussions with the other colleagues, other DGs, saying, why do you need that? I said, no, because we're trying to put together a set of methodology. We're doing it as well. They said in GSC and Clean. I said, yes, of course, but you can control it and check it and verify it as well, because this is a partnership. So they can help really understand and assess all the input and the impact that can give the partnership to all the data that you're measuring as well. And okay, then after some discussion, finally, it was agreed. You remember, it took some time. And it's a pleasure to see that you reached the end with some really good results. More than happy to be here and listen to the end. Because, of course, we want to understand what that impact on the on key performance indicators that are outside of the partnership remit. So to understand how we're impacting the quality of life, the quality of citizens, the air, the climate, the pollution, etc., etc. And this is really can give a good methodology, tools to approach it for now and for the future. And this is why this would be my request, additional, and I think would be discussed, what would be the future? So this would be the main point. My question to you, because you know it since the beginning, because now we have a methodology, we have something, we have some tools that still needs to be integrated. Because from my point of view, I don't think we explored enough the digital twins, the use of digital twins developed by the different projects. And I'm wondering, as now the project will be coming to end, but we have a lot of interested stakeholders around the table. How can we follow up with that? Who will be taking it and use it as soon as possible and for the future to be implemented even more, as Joe was saying, to support a common methodology for all the projects? This will be my big question, and I hope I'm happy to discuss it with you later.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And I'll just say briefly here, I'm standing in as a proxy from Ricardo for actually the official coordinator, E3M, that's represented by Yanis here. Yanis, if you want to just say hello from your side as well.
Yes, so thank you, Simon. Indeed, we're working very closely, part of the same group. So sometimes our role is indistinguishable with Simon, but officially, E3 Modeling is the coordinator of this project. So after these 2 years running, I'd like to very much thank everyone for the effort and being here. So it has been great for us to see, because from a very specific modeling perspective, how we get to translate very granular inputs at project level and get this to a macroscopic impact translation. And it has been a great experience working with very passionate partners and seeing the drive to collect the data, find ways to engage with projects, identify gaps, but also bridge those gaps to get to the end goal. So it has been a great experience for us. And I think this really has added value in producing methodologies that can help make this translation of what is the impact our research agenda is bringing. So very much thanks to everyone. And I'll give the floor back to Simon.
Thank you very much, Yanis. So a direct answer to your question there, Guido, you're already seeing that part of the process is integrated, because I know yourselves and the JRC use several of the tools that are represented in this room as well. So that's coming along. May we have the next slide, please? We've got that, the agenda and the goals. Thank you very much for that. So I hope online everything is clear and that you're raising your thoughts and questions, and that maybe Julia or Andrew, if you see anything, or Yanis, if you pick up anything, you can let us know as we're going along. This is a meeting in 2 parts. This morning we're running an open public meeting with quite a bit of an agenda, and in the afternoon we are then going to deal with more of the project final aspects in relation to the feedback that we're getting from our advisory board, and looking, as you were saying, Guido, towards the future as well. So if I may have the next slide, please. That's just showing that we've got this morning session. In the morning, we'll just go through a little bit of a summary of what's happened so far, and then pass on to each of the work packages to raise some information. We'll have a coffee break at about 11:15, hopefully, and we'll break for lunch at about 1 o'clock at lunch. The public part of the meeting will finish. Those of you who want can stay online, and we'll go into more of the, let's say, the administrative, the recommendations and the future steps activities in the afternoon. So thank you very much for that, Andrew. Let's move on. We've got quite a few attendees here in the room and quite a few attendees online. To save time, I would suggest we probably all know each other. You can see everybody who's here at the time as well on the slides. So I won't do a big round of introductions to people. Thank you very much for everybody for joining here, even those Jean-Charles who have come from the first and the last. I'll be calling you Alpha and Omega at the end of the day. Here, thank you very much for that. But what I could ask just now, if possible, please, can you, each of you who's online or everyone here, can we please just turn our cameras on, and Julia and Yanis will probably try and take a record of who's here online and or in person with either photographs here or otherwise. Oh, real photographs,
Well, we
almost.
could have a team photo at lunchtime
Yes,
for the online
if
people.
you want to share this screen on Teams, I guess maybe it makes more sense if Janice takes a screenshot, but just in case.
Yes, thank you very much. But go ahead, you. So we have way too many media going on here, but if you could just share the screenshot of the online meeting, please, Andrew.
Yeah, just
If we can find it again. Are you still online, Yanis?
Yes.
Good, good, good. Yanis P, Yanis T, Yanis G. Or GPT. We're just struggling to share the window on the screen. Yeah. We've just got too many media running.
Mhm. You can close the presentation now, so we shouldn't be seeing this at all.
Sorry, I'll take a screenshot.
All right.
So we'll take a shot
Okay.
of the physical meeting room here as well.
I'll try during the coffee break.
All right.
This is
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody for doing that. If you don't see your names on these lists here, please let Yanis G online know. Just put a name in the chat so that we can pick up who else is here who we didn't have registered for the meeting as well. Thank you for that. And there'll be a formal sign-in sheet for people in the meeting room here going around later on in the day as well. Thank you. Let's keep going and move on. And if we can just bring up the full screen and go on to the meeting
there's stuck on
Louise
this
for today.
slide. It's stuck on the slide.
Yeah. So
Even though I can see a different slide.
as Stefan says, I'll keep talking anyway, whilst the presentation's working itself out. Really, the reason for us meeting today is to give you an idea about what's happened in general inside of LeMesurier, but also what's happened in particular. It's a lot more about interpreting the results, showing the overall summary of that, etc. So hopefully that will be informative to many of us, and we'll also get a chance then to have feedback from the stakeholders and the advisory board members as we go on. And then finally, let's have some question and answers from everybody online, if we could, please. A brief summary here. We're here primarily, as Guido and others said this morning, because of the 2.0 partnership, which has an extensive range of objectives, etc. We're trying to provide a method and a means as LeMesurier to measure these parameters so that we can, again, take the results and use them for the future, as has just been mentioned as well. What we've found out as we've gone through this last 18 months to 2 years in progress is that actually we're making progress on the majority of the 2.0 objectives. Actually, if we look at the KPI targets, if you like, some of them have already been achieved, which is very good because we're only really measuring the first third or first half of the 2.0 partnership. What we've gone on to work on is looking at the generic objectives, the higher level objectives, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which also 2.0 in part is feeding into, and we've come up with way too many recommendations that we're going through the process of now trying to consolidate so that they're more useful and usable for things going forward. So we'll come to that later on this afternoon. But it's an update for you now following the 2 webinars that we gave last month for projects and partners. Those webinars are available online as well if you want to see more information. Again, have a look at the website in that sense. Thank you very much. Why are we sitting here today? Why are we doing this? Because actually, if you look at the 2.0 partnership, it's got a lot of KPIs to measure. And several of those KPIs are very, very complicated to measure. And it doesn't stop there because we're also thinking about how those relate to the sustainability goals. So what we've been trying to do is work out a route towards the impact of the 2.0 partnership, even though we're only looking at the very beginning of the activities. And we're doing that by looking at the 2.0 general, specific and operational objectives and the targets for each of those objectives. So hopefully through the determination of both the method of measuring and the initial measurement, LeMesurier is providing value to most of you in the room here. Let's see how it goes today in that sense. The project itself, though, has been relatively brief and relatively small. You can see the details there if we can just click on to the next feed in that. The majority of the partners are in the room here. All of the partners are online if they're not in the room here. So thank you for joining and thanks for all of your contributions to that. If you just go through the right-hand side, click, 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 because I'll come back to that slide, but the next slide. Be aware we're talking about measuring what is actually a very, very long process from the initial research ideas through the projects towards the impact in the marketplace. We're only taking a snapshot right at the very beginning and making a projection about what might happen sometime in the future. That whole process is in that little diagram that you see on the right-hand side there. It's in the SRIA for anybody who wants to have a look at it, but it's long and complicated. We're trying to give you our, as a team, interpretation of what it might look like. What we found out is, for example, that whilst all the modelling work and based on the policy choices and approvals that have gone ahead, there will be an impact of zero emissions technology in the future. We've actually, through the routes inside of LeMesurier, been able to account for the specific results of the 2.0 projects and what they might be in the future as well. So we've found somewhere between a 2 to 8% further saving when we look specifically at the technology decided inside the projects that wasn't necessarily in some of the models that we have based in around the room in the first place. So that's quite important to know. When we started the project, we had 4 or so objectives. If we just click to the final point on that slide, actually, I think we've made progress on all of those 4 objectives. So we've done the accounting, we've identified and quantified the interactions, and we'll hear about that from Joanna later on. We have got lots of additional recommendations, and this and other activities are part of the dissemination. So we've been doing well at the top level. We've also been doing well at the detailed level as well. Each of those objectives has a suite of sub-objectives inside of it. And particularly for number 1, I would say, I'm not sure which version of the presentation we're running now, but we should be getting some very positive ticks coming out on the slides right now saying we've achieved these objectives from my perspective as well. And if we go down into the objectives 2, 3, and 4, also, I think we've made a good contribution to achieving those objectives. Clearly, we've got 3 weeks left in the project, so we've got a little bit more time to do 1 or 2 things. We haven't delivered all of the deliverables. They will come before the end of the month. Hello, horse. So that's going on positively as well in that sense.
In the men's toilets there, there's a couple.
Let me just see if I can move on for a moment. It's down. Yes. Overall, this is a picture that you probably know. This is the process that we've had inside of 2.0 and inside of LeMesurier. So we've been looking at the portfolio of projects that 2.0 have. That's the square on the left-hand side there. We've been taking the information that we've been gleaning from the projects and other sources. We've been doing the accounting in 2 work packages, which will form the majority of the presentations this morning. And then looking at the interactions, but trying to keep all of the flow of that information running together before we get to the recommendations and the results, interacting with the advisory board, etc., as we've been doing right now. I was having some interesting chats last week at the EU car meeting when we were discussing the 3 difficult to do compound KPIs, the modelling that involves the vehicle parks, etc. But I remember Joao, you were there. We had to say, no, actually, there are more than just 3 KPIs. We've been measuring 40 KPIs related to 20 different objectives that the 2.0 project has. So it's been a lot of process and accounting in that sense before we get, and if you just click on a couple of points now, to the actual devils in the detail, which is part of the SRIA that is on the 2.0 website, and you actually get to look at the specific KPIs. So 20 objectives, 40 KPIs, and we've got values for each of them. Because there are so many, we've also just generated a very brief numbering system that identifies whether the objective is a generic, a specific, or an operational objective. So you might well hear Verena or others talk about Geo KPI 25 or something like that. Don't worry, we know what each of those is, even if we can't remember at the time. We can find out.
We can look it up.
And then one final point, if you like, just in relation to the detail. We have been looking at 2 different types of KPIs. The direct KPIs, as we call them, that generally come from a single source. They are a single measure, and we've got generally a single value projected over time in the future. You just click through the text as well there. Thank you very much. And we've been looking at the compound KPIs. So whilst the direct KPIs are relatively straightforward to collect the data and produce the results, they are the majority in number. They are about 35 of the KPIs. So that's a big amount of work, even if the compound KPIs are only 3 to 5 of the KPI values. They actually take a lot of modeling work of the European vehicle park today and in the future to try and project the effect of 2.0 going forwards. So that's where the maths and the modeling and the work of 1 or 2 partners has come in. So you'll hear about both immediately now. Just the project overall, it's got a fairly straightforward organization of about 6 work packages. The 2 bookends are the project management on one side and the dissemination on the right-hand side. The main work has been done in work packages 1, 2, 3, and 4. If we just carry on the slide, please. So we've done the accounting, we've done the assessment, and we're making finally the recommendations today. But you'll also show, if you can click one more, and one more again, you'll see some of the dissemination materials here as well. You'll be seeing more what Andrew and Julia and the team have been doing in terms of generating sheets for each of the individual KPIs going forwards. Timeline, we've managed, thanks to the team and thanks to everybody, to just about keep on time. We're getting through 2 years without, thankfully, a deviation or an amendment or a verlängerung for us. That's been quite good. I know it's put a lot of work on Sinair in terms of reading a lot of deliverables very quickly in the last few weeks, so I appreciate that as well, and I appreciate the feedback. We're doing okay. Let's move on to the next slide, because that explains one of the issues that we've had inside of LeMesurier that you need to be aware of. This is a very complicated slide. Effectively, we've got the timeline in terms of months and years of the first 40 or so 2.0 projects shown there from left to right going on in time. Right at the very top is the LeMesurier project running for 2 years in the red bars there. And below that, you've got each of the individual 2.0 projects being shown together within red blobs, if you like, their P1s and P2s and PXs reporting times as well. What we've been faced with inside of LeMesurier is that we've been developing the method and trying to do the measurement while the projects have only just about been starting and getting going as well. Fortunately, it's worked. If you can just click on, we've measured specifically about 30 of the individual projects, those shown there. We've also been running as a project, if you click one more, where about 10 other projects have been starting. So we've been having conversations and interactions with them. And we know in the last months and so, if you click on one more, we've got quite a few projects that are literally just starting right now and are, thankfully, some of them are online, have been online in the webinars, learning about LeMesurier and what's been happening as well. So we've been taking a good look at the portfolio of projects, but from different timelines and different aspects. What we've got here is a method and a first interpretation of the results for people to take on board and take on going forwards. One of the things that you will start seeing today and see more often in the future from LeMesurier are these types of data sheets. 40 KPIs. We've got a data sheet for just about every one of those KPIs. These data sheets tell you what the KPI is, what the KPI number is, what the target is, and then they give you some of the results of the measurement, the graphs that you can see in the middle of this slide, together with some, let me say, caveats, comments, warning signs at the bottom there that you have to be aware of as well, just explaining what we've done, what we've found, where the complications for the future lie. But hopefully, for each of those KPIs, you've now got a projection of the value based upon either working with the projects and finding out what they're doing, or working with the modeling results to find out what the projections are for the future. So from my perspective, a big thank you to the whole team who's taken, as you were saying, Guido, this complicated matter and got through almost to the end of it as well. We've now got as well a suite of recommendations, lessons learned. If you can just click through that. We were looking at those lessons and recommendations and lessons learned in the first instance in 3 different categories. What we've actually found is practically we've got 5 different categories, from looking at the formation of the partnership, the program, going through the projects, and then looking at the final review. And also we've done let's say, a suite of recommendations related to operational aspects as well. So a large proportion of the large number of recommendations that we have are related to the operations of the portfolio of projects and the programs as well. Many of them are quite detailed, but some of them, as Joao said, was really quite useful for looking forward to the future automotive partnerships as well going forwards. And we're just starting. That's my responsibility that we've been delayed, but really it's a CSA. How are we going to exploit a coordination and support action? Well, hopefully it's because both the partnerships will pick up the methods going forwards, also that we'll get some of the transfer of those methods to maybe other partnerships or future partnerships. And then also a lot of the modeling work that's been done could feed directly back to the JRC and the models that they run, so that you get an updated data set of emissions factors or energy consumption factors, etc., based upon the work that 2.0 is doing. So there are a variety of different ways that these results will hopefully be exploited in the future, and we're just preparing the final deliverable on that perspective as well. And on that point, I realize with the IT issues and other things, we've maybe run over time a little bit, but I just want to pause, take a breath at that time, look to see if there are any immediate questions online or from the audience here. Ian, of course, you have a question. Don't forget the microphone, please, Ian.
Which way is up? Okay, thank you. Simon, thank you for that.
Let's go back a slide just briefly then.
Just a reminder, KPI is actually a target. We all agree on that. And the other point I have to make is that if the projects are responding to a call and there's no link to what we're calling the KPI or the target, we can't expect the projects to address these points. Just a reminder.
You're quite right there, Ian. And when we get to the very end of today and we go through the recommendations, you will see almost exactly those words on one of the last slides. Thank you very much. Any other queries or questions? Do we have anything online from people at all? Nothing? Guido, of course.
No, I'm sorry, just this stupid question. I think, can you highlight what was the most difficult point for this process? Because I know there were so many, but if you can highlight one point, that's also helpful, I guess, for the colleagues online to understand how difficult it is to measure this.
Okay. So I think everybody around the room will have a different perspective because we all addressed issues. And actually, one of the project aspects that I didn't talk about was our risk management. We have had risks, we have had them occur, and we've alleviated them as well. I tried to highlight it a bit in that timeline diagram. It's the idea of running a project that's meant to measure the impact of a partnership, whilst that partnership is still only in its formation, its early stages of the projects. So we've been having to develop the process whilst the results are not necessarily there from the projects, and we have been having to develop our own, if you like, measurement and modeling techniques to take advantage of what we expect the projects will be doing in the future. So we've been running a little bit ahead of the overall process, but I think that's part of the responsibility of where we were and when we started. So that's probably the most difficult thing because it's brought time delays and also some, let's say, uncertainty about how we do the analysis of the results because we haven't got the results yet. But we've met both of those points and we've come up with the answers, I think. Thank you.
So from my side, just to say that I was expecting to get the problem also to get the information and the connection with different projects. But that's a good point. If it's not the first problem you mentioned, I think it's good for the future.
Well,
Because it means there is a commitment and the way they understood the logic of it.
that's exactly right. And probably with people online here as well, what you'll have seen is that the questionnaire in work package 1, the deliverable, the digital twin in work package 2, etc. The processes have been recognized and have worked. They were suffering from, well, who do I talk to? Which projects are going to provide me the data in the first place because of the timing? But actually it's gone through and it's worked. And overall, most of the people online and in the room here have said, thank goodness that the projects have helped us and provided the data for us. That's been very positive. Okay, thank you very much. I'll hand over to Verena, work package 1 leader now. Thank you very much.
Can we just plug this in?
Yeah. All right. So it's not on the same presentation.
It's a different slide.
So you're going to run out of USB ports.
At some point, I believe
I don't
switch
need
it out.
I don't need the mouse.
All right.
But not.
I'm all right here.
Thank you.
It's on the.
On the project teams.
Oh right. Okay. Oh, so this is just. All right.
That's just the presenter.
Oh right. It was your presentation. Sorry. Okay. I'm with you.
These meetings final.
Oh. Okay, but it's getting there. Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Trying to.
Yes. That's
Brilliant. Okay. As promised and announced by Simon, hi, my name is Verena. Most of you know me. AVL has coordinated the work package 1 within the LeMesurier project. It was about the accounting of what we call the direct KPIs, which, as Simon already mentioned, accounts for the majority of the KPIs you find in the list in the 203. What will I show you today? I will summarize the questions that I'll pause for a moment. Reshare the slides. That really happens. You have so many tabs and windows.
Okay. Now, Peter, you see it?
We're good now?
Online, yes, you can see it. Okay.
Good. So I will summarize the questions that prompted us to do the accounting of the direct KPIs in the first place. I will summarize the steps that we have taken to get to the assessment and the methods we have used to get there and to get the required information, because as Niels just mentioned, about 40 KPIs, information from about 30 projects. That's a whole lot of information that we had to get and bring together. We will look at one of the main results. That's the project questionnaire. That's the questionnaire that we sent out to 0 projects that were consulted. We will look into a complementary analysis that we did that we called the deep dive to complete the assessment. Then we will have a look at the overall status of the direct KPIs and the compound for that matter as well. And then I will show you a glimpse into the visualization of these KPIs, because as Simon already mentioned, there's a one-pager for each of them, but we tried to make it understandable and nice to look at. Obviously, if you have questions, remarks, whatever, we'll take care of those as well. So first, we asked ourselves, what should a common framework for the monitoring for the 2.0 KPIs look like even? And what do we need to do? What tools do we need to use to get the information to do an assessment? And how much do 2.0 and the 2.0 projects contribute to the 2.0 objectives and the KPIs listed in the LeMesurier? The methods and the steps that we took to get there. See, I started off with a street because it was quite a way, even though it was only 2 years. You think?
I just let someone into maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's moving. That would be a pity if the animation didn't work, you know. Okay, so we started the whole journey off by thinking about what the framework could look like, what the framework conditions are, and defining our starting points, you know, what was already out there. Once we had defined that starting point, we consulted information that was publicly available in order to see what the projects and the overall internet institutions themselves published online for us to use and already know. Now that we knew it was already online and public, we made a plan. We set up a plan to do 2 things, or 2 types of assessment. First, for designing the questionnaire that would go out to the projects, and then for designing a complementary deep dive analysis. I'll explain the difference between the 2 and how they work together as well later. Then, after we had a few iterations of improving the questionnaire, making sure it was understandable and usable and useful, we put it online and put it into the EU survey tool, which proved to be really useful. Then we distributed the questionnaire with all our questions. I'll show you how long it was later. And then obviously we had to monitor what we got back from the projects. So we were monitoring the feedback. We kept track on which project would give us feedback, when, which KPIs they chose in the questionnaire, how they responded, etc., etc. For the obvious gaps we already saw when we got the feedback back, we arranged for coordinator interviews with a handful of projects. In parallel, we asked, thank you, Guido, we asked DEC to provide us with aggregated data from the project's periodic reportings, meaning the statistics and data they have to report on anyway. We got a summarized version of that data to use for our measuring. Then came what we call the initial assessment of the direct KPIs. That is a large document. I'm aware, wow, probably have already seen it. That's because that's a document that includes the feedback of more than 30 projects. We have had feedback from every single project consulted in work package 1. About 40 KPIs. It's a large document. And then we went to reviewing that initial assessment. Because obviously, the more familiar you get with the KPIs and how the projects work and what they tell you, we had a look at the initial assessment and determined whether or not our measurement method was appropriate. That's very much dependent on whether or not we got the result we were looking for. Again, in parallel, while doing the review, we started visualizing the roundabout 40 KPIs and the assessment results. So I have many one-pagers to show you, but I'll be a bit more detailed for some of them. And then we eventually submitted, was back in November now, about a month ago, roughly, we submitted the reviewed KPI assessment. That document is a combination of two things. First, us reviewing, saying, well, did the assessment in the first stage provide the result we were looking for? And if it didn't, how do we suggest the assessment is adapted in the future? And in parallel, because we noticed there are a few gaps, not many, but a few, we made use of another consultation with the project that was going on in work package 3 to close those gaps in this assessment. So this is now the reviewed assessment. As you can see, many steps to get to where we are. I will now give you a closer look into the questionnaire, into the deep dive analysis, into the assessment status and the results, and the visualizations that we got out of them. That is a closer look into the questionnaire, which is a video I recorded. Don't have to do it myself. So this is the LeMesurier webpage. When you go there, put the link up below on top. If you go to library, under our publications, there you'll find a link to the user survey questionnaire. You hit that link, you're at our questionnaire. You see the introduction that we did to explain to Zero projects what we were doing and why we were doing it. A few additional explanations, glossary. And then you get down here, and there you see it, the long list of KPIs. In the first section, we asked people where they were, who they are, so that we knew whom to consult in case of questions. We asked their project acronym, and then we made them choose, in order to make the questionnaire for them more manageable. We made them choose the KPIs their project was contributing to. That's not a duplication of any real answers, just coincidence to show how the questionnaire works. You see that there's a long list. And what you will also see, each KPI that they chose in this list now got a section at the bottom, so it opened up. Again, the section that opened up started with our KPI identifier. That's obviously, so it's clearer for us. The title is more interesting was more interesting for the projects, obviously. And then we just asked them. First, we started off with yes and no questions. And if they chose yes, a whole set of new questions appeared, where we asked more details.
I just said no to everything. It should come back to you three.
Yeah. But we have not had that.
No, we haven't.
So there was no project that chose no all throughout.
Otherwise, you stop the funding.
Yeah. And basically what we did in the questionnaire, we did a combination of things. First, we asked for a more generic description because sometimes people give you detailed information in generic descriptions that they might not think of. And then we asked more detailed questions, hoping for baselines, numbers, preliminary results. That's where things got a bit more tricky, as you can imagine, right? Basically, what we told them, if they were to go through the whole questionnaire, it would take them about an hour. The people I've spoken to were faster, usually filling it out because most of them chose a handful of KPIs at the very top and had to fill in, again, a handful of sections down below. Obviously, you could change your answer if you thought better of it. You could save a draft in between if you were pressed for time. And that it's a pretty simple setup that helped projects filter, nevertheless. And then we had a third section in there already in preparation for what was happening in work package 3 for the generic objectives, the overarching objectives, and we asked them whether the projects contributed to them. And once they hit submit, we got a message that we would have something to analyze. Right now, we're in the process of exploring how we can give Benedetta an access for a limited amount of time so that you might be able to use, duplicate, copy, paste the information and keep on using it and adapting it for future monitoring purposes. So now the projects entered their feedback.
And thank you to all of them who did that.
Yeah,
Really.
of course. That's a big, huge thank you to all the Work Package 1 partners, especially also to Eleni, who is online, who had a lot of work with the questionnaire and setting it up. So now we got the questionnaire feedback, we got messages, and that is a quick summary for you of what that looked like. And it's over a setup. As I said, we got responses from all consulted projects. So that goes to show that as soon as the projects understood what we were doing and were aware, they were responding. So they were not reluctant to cooperate with us. They were indeed eager to help and understand. And some even used the questionnaire to bring to their review or monitoring meetings to keep a bit track.
Okay, thank you to 2-0 for pushing them as well.
Of course, we have Zinea and 2-0 both helped us push and remind project it was necessary. Obviously, it was a team effort, but still, they came back to us within a reasonable amount of time, I think. As you can see on this graph, there's 3 colors in the bars. The green means the project has quoted they cover that KPI. The red means they chose no, we're not covering it. The yellow or orange means they covered it partly. So what we see from that graph, no KPI that was on the list got only no's. They were all covered at least partially, which gives us a good way to get started, obviously. And then when you look at the yellow ones, the partially, that's the low-hanging fruit, as Joanna called it, for us to go back to the projects and ask a few questions. Why partially? How come? Right? Part of the questionnaire was also the question, if you cannot provide any results or preliminary results, when do you expect to have the results? That's what this graph shows. The orange parts means projects we're expecting results in 2025, end of 2025, so right about now. The blue means sometime in 2026. And that's helped us get an idea of when we should go back to the projects or future monitoring purposes, we're promising the most results. First part of the assessment, done. Questions about the first part of the assessment? Pretty straightforward, I think. Yes?
I'm just curious because I saw the operational objective 2, and there was nobody saying yes, but I think was really specific on OO KPI 2. Which
That's
is the
the
only
one,
one
yeah.
that is not even a yes.
Yes.
Which one it is?
I don't know by
You
heart,
remember by
but
heart? No.
I know that it was one. Usually,
I think it's very specific.
exactly. I think obviously where you get the most yeses, those are the more overarching ones, where projects could obviously find themselves. The ones that were,
No, but I'm looking at it. I think
Yeah.
it's the 1,000-kilometer cars.
Yeah.
Development demonstration of affordable new vehicle solution.
and sometimes
Charging
it's multiple
technology.
sets of targets as well. So they were looking at them, said, well, we only work on part of this. So they didn't dare put yes.
Yeah, you're quite right.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I was
Is
looking
that a
at it.
surprise?
Not really.
Yeah.
This has actually down there.
1,000 kilometers. I mean, that's really specific as an operational objective.
So if they're doing 600, they put partially.
Hey, that's important.
Yeah.
800.
They're all trying to, obviously, they didn't want to overpromise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We got good results and we trusted the results that we got from part projects as well, in part. But this was a checkpoint, this next point.
Was there any difficulty between projects saying we have achieved or we will achieve by the end of the project this
Yeah.
KPI? Or, well, this KPI is in our proposal and DOA, but it's something you would expect years after the end of the project because it's maybe after deployment and scaling up and things, because a project with a small test site or a few test sites isn't going to change the world on its own. It's really often the results
Yeah.
coming later.
Since, a lot of the KPIs that asked for demonstrations was asking for, were the demonstrations, was there testing, was there validations going on? So projects were really, if they had the results, they were pretty specific.
Mhm.
So they didn't refer to the whole
Theoretical.
future, yes.
Yeah.
So as Simon just said, we did have a checking point in there. That was more of a qualitative approach. So as I just mentioned, the assessment I just described to you was us going through the projects, consulting all of these, I think it was 32 projects, and asking them what KPIs they were contributing to. That way, we put a filter here in the KPIs. And then we knew that project works on these 2 KPIs, that project works on these 4, and so on. And that information we use for the assessment. The checking point now was the deep dive analysis that we kind of did the other way around. We looked at project results, envisioned project impact, envisioned exploitation plans that we got from projects. And we compared those to all of the 2.0 objectives and KPIs. Obviously, that's a lot of work. So we had to put the filter in the projects we chose. So that's why we did this analysis on a handful of projects. 6 in the end, right, Trudy? That's the difference. That's also the complementarity of both approaches. To see if we actually missed something here and there. that projects filtered the KPIs. And here we chose the projects we were assessing. However, doesn't mean you can roll out that methodology to every single project if you wanted to. So the deep dive analysis, our checking point, did not surprise us, as in uncovered a whole lot of gaps from the first assessment. It rather reconfirmed the approach. It provided us with a project level perspective. It got us a whole lot closer into the project results without the project coordinators or work package leaders putting a filter on them. We chose the projects that we were doing this analysis on thematic relevance, on how far they were along, on the availability of results and data, and how many stakeholders and ideally LeMesurier partners were involved in them already. Again, the high contribution rate was confirmed from the first assessment. As said, to the questionnaire, all projects responded. The analysis of the results showed the projects were complying and working on the 2.0 objectives and 2.0 KPIs, even though they might not have been very specifically mentioned in the original calls. They worked on exactly the topics we were expecting. And a few challenges that were identified that didn't surprise us as well was there was a bit of regulatory fragmentation, obviously regulations. There were a few confidentiality concerns with the results. We did expect that as well. And the call for more standardization. So now we got two types of assessment. And we have a status for each of the KPIs. As you can see here, majority of them is green, which means already achieved or progressed. There used to be a few inconclusives. They're not anymore because we were able to fill the gaps with the second consultation. And now we visualize the whole thing. I'll show a few in more detail later. There's a second page with visualizations. So most of the KPIs got their own one-pager. A few of the KPIs we summarized because it just made sense. So when you look at these two, for example, here at the bottom, that's a summary of, well, that's a summary of statistics, really. You can't really read that, can you? But that's several KPIs on one page. I'll show it later.
We can, yeah.
And that's 2, for example. And also, that's 3. So we did have a few combined one-pagers. Okay, let's look at how the one-pagers are set up. We have the identifier GL KPI 1, general objectives, first KPI in the list. That was about the proportion of climate-related spending in Horizon Europe spending. That was a KPI that did not go in the questionnaire. Because we checked the public data, we found out the information was available. No need for us to bother project with it. So that's the visualization that comes from this assessment. The top of the visualization, the top of the one, okay? The top has
The
the
data comes from the EC, so they're questioning their own data.
There's the source, put it there. I can give you the link, yeah. So the top comes with the project logo, the version, date, obviously, because those are moving targets, right? It identifies the KPI the specific target up here, how the target was described in the 203, and whether or not the target was achieved, not achieved, partly achieved. We are aware that things are probably a bit more nuanced in the achieved, not achieved area. However, we needed to make it a simple approach for these visualizations. Then usually you'll find one graph or two graphs in the middle of the document that summarizes the reporting data, the public data, or the information we received from projects. And where applicable, we put a timeline with either developed projections or estimations that we get from projects. Few additional descriptions at the bottom. Disclaimer and funding acknowledgement of each of them. And then at some point when we get to the decimation, we plan to put a QR code somewhere that will link to the detailed reports. SO KPI 7, that was about well-established fleet managerial tools. That is what we asked in the questionnaire. That is what we got back. At the time of the consultation, which was 2024, 2025, we confirmed 2 use cases. So that's basically how these things worked. Also, these assessments used aggregated data only. So we did put a whole lot of effort into aggregating the data so that we show, well, a summary of the entirety of the project portfolio. Yes?
But is it feasible then to go and check? Because if I give some
Yeah.
to a politician, of course, they will say,
So the
"Which
information we have,
you have it in any case,
Yes.
something that can be seen.
of course, yes,
It's
it's not public.
Yeah, it's an important point. We've got
Yes.
to protect what the projects are doing. It's their information. They've been kind enough to share some of it with us, but we're aggregating it as the LeMesurier project in relation to the 2.0 portfolio. But the source is there if we need to go back around the loop
Yes.
for the project.
So we can trace the information back down. Yes. SO KPI 8B. That's the number of transport operators implementing zero tailpipe emission business models. That's the question in the questionnaire. You see it's a bit more detailed, right? And that is the visualization. That basically means that some projects got back to us saying they were working on passenger transport only. Some got back to us saying they were working on freight transport. Some did both.
I see problem in the back. I don't think include the public transport here, because from the question you're asking, this is only for the private and the freight and not the public transportation. So people mobility might be out. These I don't know.
Go on, Verena.
There are public transport operators in the consultation, in the responses.
No, because in the question, I think the project demonstrating not to use cases.
Because
Truck.
that,
For
okay,
regional, medium, long haul, expressing payload.
yeah,
All right.
you know what? That's part of a detailed question that
Okay.
pops up.
Good, 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 good.
If you start at the very top, it does ask you for this,
Very good.
right? It's just, I couldn't put the whole thing.
And again, you see here, we've got 8A and 8B. So we actually, the KPI was so extensive that we had to go down to 2 sets of questions.
I was expecting more from the passenger transport. Honestly,
Yeah.
from- Okay.
But have a think about the number of projects we've got. There's not so many.
And which one? Because of course some projects
Yeah.
started and they
I
are
know
not.
we- Yes.
It's only always a
But in
glimpse.
2024, they are not.
That's one of the combined sheets for the LCA approach, the LCI database, and the circular economy strategies. Thanks, Tilo, for helping with that one. I think he's online, right? So this, we use the type of visualization that made the most sense, right? So for two of them, SOKPI 9, the commonly accepted LCA approach, and SOKPI 11, the advanced circular economy strategies, we put progressed, as in halfway there. For SOKPI 10, the LCI database, we could not measure progress. That's why it is red on the visualization. And that is what it would look like in the KPI status table I showed earlier. The explanations get a bit shorter. This was OOKPI 9. It was about demonstrating charging operations. We used different types of visualizations. We played around with them a little bit. For the consultation time, 24-25, you can see testing is active. Limited, but active. No demonstration as of yet. Validation is planned to go on, so that's the response we got from projects in the next years. So we put 27. And we can expect, that's a projection, for its demonstration / early deployment by 2030. It's again a combined one, OOKPI 10 and 11. That's the aggregated data that we received from the EC and from 2.0, thanks to C and Guido. So that's a rather simple visualization. But as you can see, very different variations of visualizations. They're all in the corresponding deliverable, D1.3. Happy to hear thoughts, suggestions, how we might make it better or how someone else might adapt that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you to the whole Work Package 1 team, because it was a significant team effort. You're quite right to point out a few people in there as well, directly. We must, I'm sure, I hope, have several questions already, either forming in the room or online. So, Julia or Andrew, have you seen anything online? If not, the customers here, questions,
Concerns.
please.
I have several questions, so it's fine. I can take one, and then you can take one, and I can ask again. So thank you, Verena. My first question is regarding the feedback you received from the coordinator. I guess it will be very challenging for you to answer, but do you know if how many of the coordinator went back to the consortium member to get input to reply to the question?
I have an idea, because when we reached out to projects, sometimes they would come back to us. I would say about a third of them came back to us via email, maybe asking a question or something. And I would say maybe 25% to 30% of them went back to consortium members.
Only.
Yes?
But on top of that,
No.
LeMesurier itself has project members in quite a lot of other projects.
Which wasn't a match.
We did that check as well. So it's 25% from the questionnaire, but up front it's maybe at least another 10% projects, because we were involved ourselves.
Yeah, very true. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the nice presentation. So maybe also challenging question. I understood that most of the measurements are made on the expected outcomes of the projects. Now, this is research innovation. Delivery and expected outcomes very often meet each other. Is that there is, I understood, feedback exercise, was there any risk analysis made on the achievement of KPIs or on the results at the end, based on this possibility that the project will not deliver fully their KPIs and their outcomes?
So I will answer the first part. The measurement itself was done on the preliminary results that we got from projects. So when they told us we are expecting to have results then and then, we're expecting to have outcomes then and then, that's future, that's projection. The measuring that we did for the time 24-25, that's really preliminary results that we got from the projects. When it comes to assessing whether or not they actually achieve their own targets, that in work package 1 we did not do. We decided to consult the projects and believe the projects, and I think Ian would call it not being. We were not monitoring the projects themselves, right?
I call it the project police.
I know.
We're not.
I was wondering if to leave that word up to you.
Let me come in here because it's quite right. That was a philosophy. We're not here to do the evaluation of the projects. That's somebody else's job. You're also in the room here if you can do that. So we were asking the projects. They were very helpful, but we trusted the projects on a basis. And then it also, your question comes back to how I answered Guido's question at the very beginning of the meeting. We're doing this whole LeMesurier project whilst the other 30 or 40 projects are really only just starting or only just getting going. So it is a lot of projection, but hopefully we've proven through using the projections that the method works and we can carry this on. Actually, when we get to the afternoon session, one of the final recommendations we make is you should actually carry on this process well beyond the lifetime of the partnership as well. And you can improve the acuity of what you're getting out of that work probably up to 3 years or more after the end of the projects as well.
Which partnership are you talking about?
I'm talking about 2.0 here.
Which one?
There's only one.
So, and that's why I raised it at the beginning. The biggest issue we have is the timing of LeMesurier against the timing of the partnership of the projects. But you have, I think, now a proven method and some assessed projections. I saw we got some questions online, I think, as well. I don't know whether Andrew or you want to raise
it. Only that they will share editing rights to questionnaires.
Yes.
No questions. That's quite.
Yeah, that's what was mentioned earlier, so that we could give Benedetta access so you can use.
There's a hand up there. Michelle, please. Can I speak? I can unmute. Yeah, hello.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. My question, maybe it's to be answered later, but based on your presentation, do you have guidelines for maybe standardization of the way we report KPIs, direct KPIs for the different projects under the 2.0 partnership?
Standardize. I would love you could take the questionnaire and bring it with you when you were doing the reporting and the review meetings, when you were writing your report. So if you go to the LeMesurier webpage, have a look at the questionnaire and just use that as a guideline, I think that would be excellent already.
All right.
And if I
Thank
can
you.
just add a little bit to that as well, because we've also had that question during some of the webinars or immediately after the webinars, and we're also working with one of the other projects to help that aspect as well. The reason we have the KPI visualizations is also to give projects an idea about how they might want to present their own individual KPIs, and also then to remind the projects that you have to think about how 2.0 needs to present its KPIs. Ideal, it would be if there's a one-to-one balance between the two. But please also then look at the KPI sheets and then the associated documentation behind it.
You're welcome to.
I hope it gives you ideas about what you can do inside your individual projects.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Other queries or questions? Lucy's got her hand up permanently here, so let's.
Just another question and continue. regarding the deep dive analysis. So you mentioned that it was more or less confirming the findings that were from the online questionnaire. Then my question is very straightforward. Do you think that for 2.0 as the next step, the deep dive would be still an interesting addition, or could we only rely on the questionnaire?
So I think that's a resource question, really, because doing it with the questionnaire, obviously it takes quite a bit of time to prepare and do the thing and monitor the feedback. However, you reach all the projects at once. The deep dive is about analyzing, reading, understanding project results as plural for each project. So to answer your question, interesting, yes, but very resource intensive. So I would expect that you guys would go for a questionnaire approach in the first step. And then when it comes up with gaps or unclear, we had the same thing. If something was unclear or we didn't understand, we did have to go back to projects, ask a few questions, look at a few results, and then complete the assessment.
Thank you,
That's a resource issue, yes.
Your boss has a question. Sorry, no. Pause, please.
You have to switch it on. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Thank you. Complicated for me.
I guess it would be helpful for everybody online if you could just say your name and your affiliation.
Yes, it was Flügel from AVL. When you did the questionnaire and got the answers, have you run into KPIs where you think, okay, maybe it's very difficult to answer them, or they could be should be rather different, or if I may say it in that words. So you know what I mean?
Two different questions. The first one, have you run into KPIs that are maybe difficult to respond to? Yes, but due to a very simple reason. You have the objective, you have the measure of success / KPI, and then you have specific targets. Sometimes it's one specific target, sometimes it's 3. And the more detailed that line gets, the more difficult is the response, is what we found for our project coordinators. So I realized that it's necessary to be specific when defining your targets. I also realized it's difficult for projects to find themselves and the results that match those very specific limitations. So maybe if you ask me if we would maybe do something different, that's really it. Give projects a bit more room to respond, so you don't have to click no because they don't meet 1 or 2 of the very specific targets. Discussion has 2 sides.
Yeah. From my perspective, it's exactly the right question from 2 points of view. One, it points directly to the compound KPIs as well, which are very complicated, but also with 40 KPIs, with several levels of some KPIs, different targets for different vehicles. There are many engineers in this room here. You all understand what an over-constrained system is. We're going to try and get one thing and it'll pop out on the other side as well. So it is important, and we have to be careful how we've done that as we've gone through the process. Other queries or questions? Benedetta, please.
Just a quick one. Do you think, Benedetta from 2.0, do you think that KPIs are always consistent with 2.0 objectives?
With the objectives in the 3, you mean?
Yeah.
I think yes. The impression I got, I don't think there was any misunderstandings between the relation of the objectives to the measures of success. I think it was maybe the sources that sometimes got us a little bit, thinking. But the relation between objectives and KPIs didn't seem to be unclear. Do you think they are sometimes.
But just your impressions, and now you collected quite a lot of experience in assessing
I don't
them.
think that was an issue for people.
Okay, there was, and I'm sure Ian will support that as well. There is quite often a discussion about what the language means, what the words mean, whether we're actually doing what the words say in the KPI, etc. But that's something that comes out in the wash of going through the questionnaire process and the question and answer session. So it was managed, and then once that's managed, I agree with Verena's answer in that sense. Good, thanks. One last question then, and probably a statement. Let me go with Ian first of all, very briefly, and then we'll pass over to Joao. Thank you. And then we must move on, I think.
Okay, on this statement, a really good question, really good discussion. Thank you also for the presentation. There's one thing that we're neglecting here. What is the connection between the specific objectives, operational objectives, and the projects? The call for proposals. We always have to consider what was in the call for proposals. And if that is not covering the specific objectives or the operational objectives, we can't expect the projects to address any of those things. It's really, really important. And that's where we need the work. Clear message.
Exactly.
Recommendations that we had.
I did see page 85. It's exactly something that we're recommending. Please relate the 2.0 partnership objectives to the cause explicitly at some point. Let's move on to Joao, please.
Maybe more generic question. Very fast moving world. And were there any comments, or will there be any recommendations on more adaptive KPIs? Because it's a very long process. The question is, are all the KPIs still as relevant as they were at the beginning?
Okay, so I
give it a try.
I agree with Verena's movement of the head there. Yes, we've gone through a 2-year process to try and understand what the KPIs are, work out a way to measure them, generate an initial measurement of them, and then present results. These KPI sheets are dated last month, for example, or 2 months ago, but actually the data we collected was 6 months or more ago. So everything's moving on. And yes, I agree, we're always finding some KPIs that we think that was appropriate, but not maybe now. But that's a learning for the future. Some of this process, some of this documentation really should be live documents online that we keep updating, that we keep processing. But then, as Lucy will quite rightly pointed out with Benedetta, that's a point about capacity that we have in the future forward. Thanks. Let's refresh our capacities now. Let's go and take a coffee for a few minutes. We're running a little bit behind, but may I say 11:45, come back into this room, please. And online 11:45 as well, come back. And Zizis and Yanis, I accept that we've just taken 10 minutes off your time, but let's keep going, shall we?
We can shorten the lunch if necessary. We probably don't need an hour for sandwiches, so could have gone into lunchtime.
So 15 minutes now for another coffee for a brief break, back at 11:45. Thank you.
Thank you. Shared with the screen online, or is he also on?
Janice will do it remotely. Maybe easier if he shares his screen online.
I feel like we need I would think. Again, Jan.
This way, that way. Okay. And then you tell me about you. Okay.
When did that die?
Oh.
I didn't see you.
Look into the back there. Hello.
Actually, no, I came in like 5 minutes late because I lost my tram exit and then suddenly I was in the middle of Google without the how to come back. So, but it's nice to see you. Yes.
That's okay.
This is a bit, behaves a bit strangely. Okay, I closed the presentation and it was still on there, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's quite clear. The thing that's running in the foreground is fine. The thing that's running in the background.
No one, and I hate it.
To the holding slide.
I hope it's with that.
No, let's go back to.
I think in the meeting, should be, I don't know, if you're conditioning.
I think I did also put the heating on a little bit, but maybe.
But maybe change the air a little bit, while everyone's out. If oxygen.
We cannot open the windows.
No, I don't think so,
You
right?
can't open the windows, no, because
No.
people might jump out. What you want? You want more or less fun?
Let's
Less.
while everyone's
Yeah.
more fan, less temperature.
Okay. What, like?
Just for, I don't know, 10 minutes. So that people, you know, put the ears.
Can remain focused for the second half of the.
If that's usually, you know, what happens, everyone, you know, gets something to drink and then they sleep.
Yeah. Like that.
Thanks, Andrew.
So that works. Maybe
Just
it's
while
because.
people are out, so
Yeah.
sort of refresh the air a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's used, obviously.
Yeah. Something that used to
An
happen.
issue with this room, actually.
Yeah, and there's also this thing that the door's open. I don't know if it works better with the door.
Should I ask Paula?
I don't know.
You
And I
think if
remember
you close the door,
once.
it will, you know, exchange the air faster.
was just a bit cold before.
Yeah, that was quite warm.
Up front, it's fine. It's quite warm below the.
Yeah, it's kind of warm. It was making noise now. Yeah, the pants could be.
Okay, fine. I was just thinking oxygen. That's all.
Yeah. No. Fair.
Great you have here.
I leave these here so we can like.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for something there, right?
Yeah, wrestling in
Not very.
Yeah, especially December. I mean, it's not bad.
But you know, there are not a lot of offices in Brussels where you can see the sky, right?
Yeah.
Or the clouds.
Compared to what post.
Yeah, well, we turned the fan up, so hopefully it works.
We are trying to regulate.
Here there's
It's
a
a
big
bit complex how these room works. But it's warmer because before for me it was cold in here.
Yes. I think it's because.
Bom, certo? Esse nome é só apresentar. A Cláudia da Voltes. Está mais ou menos.
Sim, eu tenho daqueles já tenho 20.
20.
Destes, mais uns 10. Eu ia comer com isso também alguns, porque já está terminado. Está são os seus planos na
Desenvolvida.
Sim, estamos agora.
Finalmente.
Técnicas.
É um monstro.
6.
Sim, só nós
Sim, mas é muito dividido em muitas pequenas contribuições. É complexo.
Tem muitos parceiros fora da Europa que não têm know-how em relação aos procedimentos. Naturalmente, às vezes nem nós temos know-how em relação a tudo.
Sim, mas é um projeto multiple. Normalmente os projetos, normalmente tem muitos projetos. Agora, vemos que estava a saber, mais colegas. Isto é o mesmo de parte técnica.
Está no Drive?
Não,
Não?
É que chama. É que especialmente a parte mais técnica. Eu não sei. Talvez alguns dois, mas dois para terminar, vamos ter uma parte final. Quer mais, mas quer para fazer.
Eu percebi que no final do programa já não.
Acho que os cantores são sempre gastos agora.
Claro.
Quando falta muito aberto de estrutura e eu penso que se fala tão abertamente agora é mais fácil.
Para voltar atrás, não é? Pois.
Senão as coisas estavam um pouco mais fácil voltar para dentro, por isso há tudo
Quase turismo.
paga mais um mês, depois mais eficiência.
Não sei, puxado toda a Europa. Não, eu estou baseada aqui. Há quase 10 anos.
Também, eu já estou fechado. A Bélgica.
Já passou lá. O Bélgica.
Vamos ver, está mais alto.
Não oficialmente, mas.
Vamos ver.
Nas ideias, vai.
Não, bastante, suficiente. Vamos ver também o futuro. Suficiente. Não. Esta parte da visão, são partes. Vamos ver essa diferença. Burocracia, chatear pessoas, pessoas que se podem preocupar com a ciência, não só com a parte
O caso do museu nem tanto, não é? Porque é um lump sum,
e já vem pago. Todas as vezes que eu tenho que ver o
não é um.
nós temos tudo também que
Mas nós temos que fazer o cross-check.
Nós temos que fazer o cross-check, temos que ver se as explicações comprovar. Depois às vezes pedem, tem que explicar esta, o que é que isto custou aqui. Por isso eu cheguei, isto foi aceito para o projeto. Sempre que nós queremos a nossa nota, eles trabalham basicamente com o website e se há alguma coisa que está um bocado fora, põe.
Vocês têm que olhar para o grant agreement, olhar para os relatórios.
Que é baixa, quando há uma review. Temos sabemos o que está a acontecer, a nossa parte de esquerda do relatório. Isto pronto, isto aqui, aqui, isto foi justificado. Uma das empresas que fez nunca tive projeto que a conjuntura 100%. Espero ter e não quero ter, porque é muito possível. Ou estão a mentir, ou estão o projeto não era da ciência. Então, os colegas, muitos colegas chegam. É difícil de. Mas temos que fazer. Tem lista de livros para poder ver as famílias na palma, é impossível. Não, pois. Tudo tem perto. Estão em 5, está? Tem projetos que é modo impossível. Normalmente eles têm máximo. 14, 15. Mas é um caso excepcional. Mas também não ajuda. Por isso eu estou contente com o tempo.
So Andrew, you're already there. You've already got everything under control. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we just show the agenda first of all for the second half before lunch? Probably the next slide in the combined presentation.
Yeah. How much was
Okay. So that's exactly the right question that we discussed for this work. So it's coming up now. So the question right at the end. So we can tell you a little bit more about it.
Was not so spent forward. Really a lot of work behind.
Good, good. And just tell me when
The question
online.
of the answer is complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will call people.
Thank you very much. May I send it down the table here? Yeah, yeah. Sure. Thank you very much. How it goes.
Sorry.
So just to check, Yanis, are you online already?
Yes, yes, yes.
Good, good. Give me a moment or two whilst we just assemble your audience here as well. I can make another joke at Ian's expense here, but give us a moment or two before we just move on. Just for people in the room here, what we've got now before lunch are 2 more work package presentations. One in relation to work package 2, which is talking about the compound KPIs. So the KPIs that are much, much harder to measure and where we've got to with those. And then the more generic, higher level objectives as well, which are, let me say, more qualitative than quantitative. But we've made good progress on those over the last few months as well. So there's lots more new to report there. And Joanna here will do that in a moment or two. Who have we got left outside? Is it really just
Jan and Benedetta?
Ian and Benedetta? Okay, well, let's wait for a moment until Benedetta is back here because this is what she needs to know for the future. Yes, yeah. So we are running behind here now by 15 minutes. We've got time to do that over lunch. But let's kick off then. Yanis, Andrew can stop sharing and you can start sharing your screen, I think, Yanis, and we'll hand over to you, please.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much. Well, this is the
Can
presentation.
you hear us, Yanis?
Yes, can you hear me?
We've just lost Yanis.
Can you hear me?
But we don't see you. I see him.
Cannot hear him.
Can you hear me?
Maybe I should turn my mic on.
Online, yes.
Yes, you should.
Can you hear Yanis? Hi.
Speaker.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
We were hearing him before. Apologies, Yanis, give us a moment.
Can you hear
Oh, you
Yanis?
in this room, they can hear him online.
Yanni?
They can hear him online, but not in this room. Okay. But I put on ClickShare, ClickShare speaker.
Okay, but we haven't got anything on the screen here now either.
And then I need
Yes.
to, I need to. Oh, if I put it on like this, I can probably hear him. I put screen.
Go to the meeting, yeah. Apologies about this, Yanis. We'll be with you in a moment.
Thank you. D'accord, voilà.
Every time we have. Depending on. And I think once we go next to the big screen, we should hear.
Now? Now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Little speaker we have here, but you could start that way if everybody's, and Andrew can keep trying to get you on the big speaker.
Okay, thank you.
Right, okay, we have the screen. Then if I can put you, ClickShare speaker, speak again now, Yanis, if you can.
Yes, can you hear me? Now?
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, Yanis. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Simon, Andrew. This is the presentation for Work Package 2, the compound KPIs, and I'm Yannis Papadimitriou from MEMISIA. So let's start. Here are the contents of the presentation. We will start with the key achievements of Work Package 2. Then we will have a very short refresher about which are the compound KPIs. Then we will present each KPI separately, since they are small in number compared to the direct KPIs. Then we will show how we tried to quantify the impact of 2.0 technologies on the EU projections. And the presentation will close with the conclusions and recommendations. Okay, let's start with the key achievements of this work package. We had 2 papers already presented, one at the ARPA Forum in October and one at TAP conference in November, a few weeks earlier. We also have one paper under evaluation at TRA conference 2026. We participated in the second webinar with our compound KPIs. We had a slot there to show our work. We organized a workshop at the track office in March this year with 24 participants, 13 presentations, and many interesting technical discussion. Here is the agenda. We had the chance to present in more details all our models that we used in this project. We had 4 deliverables. Here are the screenshots of the contents of these deliverables. All of them have been approved until now. We have used 3 existing vehicle park models. This slide is for our reference only now. It has been presented in previous meetings. It has a lot of technical details about its model. Just to say that Coppertzibil uses a bottom-up approach on a per-country basis. PrimeStream is an economic engineering model for passenger and freight transport, while MoveID is a linear optimization model, minimizing cumulative life cycle greenhouse gas emissions. We developed a new model within the framework of LeMesurier, specifically developed for the needs of the project. We call it LeMesurier Digital Twin, and it produces energy consumption values for electric vehicles, battery electric and fuel cell electric vehicles. Here we have some screenshots of results. We will not go into details for this model today because it has been presented in previous meetings. And finally, we achieved all the objectives of this work package. We have established and realized a modeling framework for measuring and monitoring the 2.0 compound KPIs. We have developed a digital twin compatible with 2.0 projects. We have established 2020 baseline values and measured the results related to the KPIs for the period 2025 to 2035. And we have quantified the 2.0 project's contributions to the reduction of the energy and greenhouse gas intensity. Okay, a short refresher now about the compound KPIs. Which are they? We have the first KPI, which is about CO2 reduction. Then we have 2 intensities, the energy intensity and greenhouse gas intensity, both for passenger and freight activity. And we have the compound KPI related to reduction of development time and effort. Just to remind to all of us that these are indicators that require detailed modeling and simulations. This is why they are called compound parameters, and they are derived from multiple input data and complex calculations. So a modeling framework for measuring and monitoring these parameters was needed. Here is a figure very familiar to all of us. It has been there since the writing of the proposal of the project. It shows the various steps, starting with the selection of the sources, the projects, the 2.0 projects. Then we go into the translation of project results into model inputs. Then we use the 3 vehicle park models. We produce the results. We translate these outputs into KPI parameters, and finally, we calculate the final compound KPI values. Again, a reminder why we used 3 vehicle park models and not only 1, because the compound KPIs do not exist in any statistical or other databases, single ready-to-use values. So they come out of calculations from complex models involving methods that have been developed and being continuously updated for many years now. So we have 3 models, and this gives a perspective on the likely KPI variation. We will see this later in our slides. The 3 models give a range of projections and dispersion of results to account for the impact of the 2.0 projects, and it allows for sensitivity analysis and estimation of uncertainties. Okay, let's go into the final compound KPI presentation, and let's start with the first KPI. It is about reduction of CO2 emission from road transport. Actually, this is the final KPI sheet. We just split this sheet into the left part with the chart and the discussion here at the right part of the slide. So what we see here is the CO2 emission reduction. This bar shows the emission reduction compared to 2020. These bars are absolute numbers, CO2 reduction, and here below we have the percentage reduction the range from the three models as percentage compared to 2020. So what we see here, the CO2 emissions from road transport in the EU are projected to decrease significantly over time to 2050, based on results from all three models. The higher absolute CO2 reduction values here in the top part of the green bars were derived from an LCA approach. The lower CO2 reduction values at the bottom part of the green bars were derived from a tank-to-wheel analysis. In general, the projections show that there will be a contribution to the Fit for 55 targets from the road transport, but the measurement method needs careful attention. Here, this slide shows how these bars, the final KPI, was produced. So we had the three models, Corporate Sibyl with the green line here, PrimeStream Move with the blue line, and MoveID with the orange line here. These are the CO2 emissions, the time series from 2020 to 2050. So we see that we have some differences between the models in the time series to the future. So from this time series, we calculated the CO2 reduction in 2030, 2035, and 2050 compared to 2020. So for each model, we have the reduction, and then we combined these reductions into a single bar to produce the final KPI sheet. Okay, let's have some discussion about the differences between the models and why we have these differences. MoveID considers full LCA emissions, including manufacturing of vehicles and decarbonized fuels, in addition to operation. So the absolute CO2 emission levels are higher than those reported by the other two models in the period here, 2020 to 2030, this part of the chart. MoveID is a linear optimization model minimizing the accumulated greenhouse gas emissions subject to various constraints. Hence, the CO2 decrease rate here in the period 2025 to 2035, this part of the line, is higher. The decrease rate is higher than the other two models. We have a steeper decline here because of the assumptions of the MoveID model. Going to Corporate Sibyl, the green line, Corporate Sibyl estimates that there will be a small but noticeable number of conventional vehicles still circulating on European roads in 2050. So this is why the value here is not absolute zero. It is small, but it is not zero. In general, we can also say that the replacement rate of conventional petrol and diesel vehicles with electric ones, as well as the registration rate of old vehicles, are not the same in all the three models. This has to do with the assumptions of the models. Hence, Corporate Sibyl estimates higher CO2 values after 2035 compared to the other two models. Here we see that Corporate Sibyl, this green line, is higher than the other two models in this part after 2035. Okay, let's proceed to the next KPI. This is the energy intensity. We have separate charts for personal mobility and freight mobility in the next slide. This is the energy intensity of personal mobility. These are the absolute values, and here below is the range of reduction as percentage compared to 2020. So what we see here, we see that the energy intensity of personal mobility is projected to decrease significantly over time to 2050 based on the results from the three models. The target for personal mobility is to have a 30% reduction in 2030 compared to 2020. The projections show that this target can be achieved, but the reduction value depends on modeling parameters. The target and the exact percentage depends on which model we use and what are the modeling assumptions and parameters. So a general statement is that the effort with technological advancements, policies and measures must go on towards reducing the energy intensity of personal mobility. Something similar for freight mobility. Let's save some time and not spend too much time in this slide. It is more or less the same. We have the energy intensity for freight mobility, mainly trucks and light commercial vehicles. The target is 25% reduction in 2030 compared to 2020. Yeah, we see that we have a big difference between the models here. We will discuss about it in the next slides. Why we have this difference here, the various percentages from the models. Again, a slide showing how this final KPI sheet has been produced. We have the three models, one line per model. We have the energy intensity of personal mobility in kilotons of oil equivalent per giga passenger kilometer. We have corporate CBIL, green, prime stream of blue, and Move ID, orange. And from these three, we have these bars here. And similarly for freight mobility. The interesting is the discussion here. We have small screenshots of these charts to help us in the discussion. At the top is the personal mobility and below is the freight mobility. So in general, the energy intensity for both personal and freight mobility presents a continuous improvement. That means decline year by year, which is mainly attributed to the improved vehicle energy efficiency and to the gradual replacement of internal combustion engine vehicles with electric ones. Just to clarify that parameters like payload penalty in electric trucks, limited range and charging downtime were not considered in detail in this project. Yeah, let's discuss about this part of Move ID's line here, this orange part. Move ID energy intensity for personal mobility slightly increases after 2035 here, compared to the other two models, as the e-fuels used by Move ID enter the market and require higher upstream energy provision. And about the fact that corporate CBIL green line here about trucks, the energy intensity of trucks is quite higher than the other two models. The explanation is that corporate CBIL estimates lower electrification rate of trucks compared to the other two models. Hence, the energy intensity for freight mobility is higher in the period 2030 to 2050 here, this part of the figure. Yes, for the next KPI is quite similar. We have greenhouse gas intensity for personal and freight activity. The target again is to have a 30% reduction in 2030 compared to 2020. Here we see that we have a smaller range between the three models. Again, similarly, the greenhouse gas density of personal mobility is projected to decrease significantly over time, reaching close to zero levels in 2050 here, based on the three models. The projections show that the target can be achieved. Again, the reduction value depends on the model and the modeling parameters, and the effort with technological advancements and policies and measures must go on. Yes, a similar slide for the greenhouse gas intensity for freight mobility. Here we have bigger differences between the models for the trucks, and we will discuss it later in the next slides. Again, here we show how these bars have been produced. We have the greenhouse gas intensity of the three models, and from these three lines, we produced these bars in the final KPI sheet. And similarly for freight activity here. So again, let's go into the discussion, which is the interesting part. For both personal and freight mobility, in general, we can say that the greenhouse gas intensity presents a continuous improvement decline year by year, reaching close to zero levels in 2050, here in both figures. And this is mainly attributed to the gradual replacement of internal combustion engine vehicles with electric ones. Again, Koppert-Sibyl here estimates lower electrification rate of trucks compared to the other two models. Hence, the greenhouse gas intensity for freight mobility is higher in the period 2030 to 2050. Here, this green line, this part of the figure. And MoveID, as we said, is a linear optimization model minimizing the accumulated greenhouse gas emissions subject to various constraints. Hence, the greenhouse gas decrease rate in the period 2025 to 2035, here this part and this part is higher than the other two models. We have a steeper decline as we see here compared to the other two models. And the final KPI, the compound KPI, is the reduction of development time and effort. Just to say that this KPI, the progress has been qualitatively assessed rather than model derived. We did not perform calculations with models like in the previous KPIs, but in general, the trends are consistent across the industry and EU projects. And what this figure tells us is that the automotive developments that recently reached the start of production took 4 to 6 years from concept to market. And this led to setting approximately 5.5 years as baseline for development time of a completely new vehicle at the beginning of 2.0, while derivatives of a platform may take less time, for example, around 3 years. EU-funded projects have achieved time savings of 5 to 30% in specific phases. Recent 2.0 projects expect additional reduction of 10 to 20% by 2026, 2027, supporting the S3 target. Now a couple of slides about how we tried to quantify the impact of 2.0 technologies on the EU projections. Perhaps you have seen these slides in previous meetings, in the webinars and in one of our previous meetings. Here this chart shows how we assumed the penetration of 2.0 vehicles into our models. Just to say that the projections follow the main principles of the vehicle park models. That means that they are based on all relevant European legislation and regulations, future policies and targets. The main assumptions of how the 2.0 vehicle technologies enter the fleet are that starting from 2030, a percentage of electric vehicle sales, new registrations, battery electric and fuel cell electric vehicles are considered 2.0 vehicles. And the penetration curve follows a sigmoid shape, reaching 100% in 2050. Before showing the results, we would like to clarify the following, what we compared, which are the scenarios that we compared. We compared the current scenario already embedded in each of the 3 vehicle park models, named as reference scenario, against the scenario which includes all the technologies, the impacts expected from the 2.0 projects, named as 2.0 technology scenario. The reference scenario, already embedded in Koppert-Sibyl MoveID Primestra Move, implicitly includes part of the vehicle technology developments as in the 2.0 projects. On top of that, considering that some of the reference modeling assumptions may need to be updated, LeMesurier project, our project, refined the projection of the changes of the impact expected from 2.0 by including all the relevant technology developments. Hence, any observed difference, what we will see in the next slide, any further reduction improvement is specifically attributable to the 2.0 project contributions, so it is a previously unrecognized projected benefit of the partnership. So this is a slide with which some of you may be familiar. Here we show for Koppert-Sibyl the results, but more or less the results are similar with other models. We have here the energy consumption tank to wheel from all road vehicles. with the orange line, it is the reference scenario, the scenario that Copper Sibyl already had before LeMesurier. And with the blue line here, the dotted line is the 2.0 technology scenario. Between the two scenarios, the assumptions are the same regarding fleet evolution, activity, and policy context. Here we see that starting sometime in 40, and going to 2050, we have lower energy consumption. The percentage in 2050 is the percentage reduction is 2% reduction, and this translates to 2.8 million tons of oil equivalent energy savings by 2050. This percentage in prime stream move becomes higher. It is 7.7 due to increased uptake of zero-emission vehicles triggered by the efficiency improvements of 2.0 vehicles that reduce total user costs. It is a modeling assumption, this one. And a similar percentage, 5.5, is reported by MoveID. Just to clarify again that the difference here is mainly due to lower energy derived from LeMesurier digital twin compared to previously used values by Copper Sibyl. This is what we called in the previous slide the unrecognized benefit. Okay, going towards the end of our presentation, some key takeaways. The framework for measuring and monitoring the compound KPIs has been established. The tools are here, they are available, the calculations can be repeated, taking on board new evidence, different assumptions, etc. For the CO2 reduction KPI, we can say that road transport will contribute to the overall target of CO2 reduction, but the exact value depends on the model that will be used and the modeling parameters, assumptions, etc., and the measurement method, of course. For the energy density KPI, for both personal and freight mobility, there will be a continuous improvement, decline year by year due to improved energy efficiency and gradual replacement of internal combustion engine vehicles with electric ones. Similarly, for the greenhouse gas intensity KPI, while for the development time and effort KPI, a 10 to 20% additional reduction of development time can be expected from 2.0. Some recommendations. The compound KPIs can serve as targets and or objectives for 2.0 proposals. A follow-up activity could have significant added value. The measurement period should be extended from 2035, which was for LeMesurier, to 2050, and some proposals for further analysis to clarify the improvements expected from a tank-to-wheel, well-to-wheel, and LCA approach separately, to clarify in more detail the expected impact of 2.0 on existing projections using the EU reference scenario, etc., to focus on specific vehicle categories to understand where more effort is needed, for example, in trucks, electric trucks, and for the energy consumption of electric vehicles to improve our simulations, perform further validations, etc. And before we close this presentation, we have two slides which you can use as a reference with our tools and who you may contact to get more information about copper and copper data used and Sibyl for projections, and our LeMesurier digital twin here, the prime stream move model, and the MoveID model. So this is it. Thank you for your attention and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Yannis.
Very sorry about this microphone muted notification. I can't get rid of it.
It's not online though, right?
It's not online, so you don't see it online. It's just on the screen here. I tried to change my settings, but then I was afraid of my screen. Anyway, continue talking.
We've got over 80% of the message completely clearly, so that's good. Thank you. And thank you to Yannis for producing and showing a set of results from the LeMesurier, which was partly the reason for us doing the LeMesurier in the first place, because we didn't know whether we could generate this set of data. We didn't know whether we would be successful in identifying the effects. And frankly, from my personal opinion, I'm very glad that we've got this far. It is very complicated, but we've had 3 that allows us to make the projection not just on yesterday's methods, tank to wheel, but on today's well to wheel and for the future in terms of life cycle as well. So I'm really pleased about where we've got to, but I know it's a very complicated subject. So I'm guessing there are lots of questions or maybe lots of, lines on our foreheads in the first place. But I see we've got one question in the room, so I'll give the word first of all to Horst, and then maybe Julia or Andrew, you can just tell us who online wants to pose a question as well. But Horst, please.
Yes. Thank you very much for this presentation. Very clear and also good presented, actually. What I see here is actually that we have a very a high influence of the uptake of the electric vehicles, actually, which is probably the biggest influence. And at the end, this is nothing what has, or nearly nothing what has to do with 2.0 research. I mean, you can say something different if you think, but the real, let's say, benefits that we get from 2.0 is that for the new fleet, but not for the existing fleet and not for the blend, actually. So we do actually a mix between 2 different things which have not to do with each other, I think, or not very much. You can prove me wrong. So maybe it's better to look at what is the impact to the new vehicle fleet actually, and to the existing one. This is very much dependent on other topics like on energy price, like on policies, regulation, much more than on the technologies that we deliver. What do you say to that?
It's a good question. It gets to the heart of what we've been doing. Some observations in the first place, just before I let either Yanis or somebody else in the room give some more expert views and opinions on this. Firstly, we got 3 different types of models so that we could actually look at these individual effects, because we've got prescriptive models and we've also got then free technical choice models in there. So that helped us. And inside of the deliverable reports, you haven't just got the 1-page KPI results, you've got actually all the numbers per vehicle class, per time period, etc. So you actually can probably go toward the sort of questions and breaking down the answers that you're asking about. But in 20 minutes, and thank you for keeping to time, Yanis, we couldn't go through the detail there. But Yanis or Zizis online, do you want to add anything more? I think Yanis could. Please, Yanis.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can say something more clear. Simon, perhaps Professor Samaras would like to say something, but I'm just showing here some of the backup slides to clarify that we have all the underlying data, the stock per vehicle category, per fuel type, etc. The sales, the new registrations. I don't know if this helps now at this point of time, but we have everything, and we can provide and discuss the activity data. Everything has been presented in the deliverables. Yeah.
Thank you. Zizis, anything more?
Maybe you can. I think everything has been said already, but of course, I guess you are mostly interested in how to present the results, right? You would like really to show that, or to focus on the technological improvements that 2.0 brings and how these are really affecting the emissions and energy efficiency of the vehicle. I think as Yanis and Sam said, they are there, and I think they can be used more if necessary, right? Exactly.
Yeah, just to give
Exactly. That is what I wanted to say, because they are hidden between behind the uncertainties of the different models of the fleet. Yeah. So the fleet development has more impact in this representation that has been done than the technologies.
So I guess particularly in that we've got a question down here. So let's let Zhao ask a question as well when a microphone comes in.
Thank you.
Please.
But Simon, if I may add something here.
You can.
Yes. You know, something which should not be forgotten is that E3M's model approach includes another element that is also of interest, which means that if you produce the 2.0 vehicles which are more effective, more efficient, and probably less expensive, then the choice of the vehicles will go to these vehicles as well, which is an indirect but should be measurable effect as well, which is a 2.0 effect, I guess. Yeah.
Sure. Should I just concentrate on that?
Yeah.
I did that.
Yes.
Thank you. So, I don't know, Yanis P.
Introduce yourself so people know your voice.
Yanis J here. This is from if modeling. So we're working together in Work Package 2 and representing the primes element here. So I don't know if you can switch back to the unrecognized benefit slide. And so I think there was also another interesting element where you were highlighting the differences of the models, and we ended up with different efficiency benefits per model. So there's this 2% coming out of corporate civil and this 7.7% coming out of primes. And this because of the different mechanisms in the model. So as Professor summarized very well, that there is this benefit of vehicle choice because of changes in life cycle costs. And up to now, these are coming mainly from efficiency gains, from energy efficiency gains. There's a part of unfinished business here because projects are still running their course, and you don't have detailed understanding of the capex cost benefits that they will be producing. So there is another element, another feedback loop that would be implemented in increasing, potentially increasing, hopefully increasing the electric vehicles uptake, where you have also the set purchasing price impact there. So this 7.7% might be higher if we have this as well. And but also to this other point, I wanted to comment, I mean, a different element that what Yanis P mentioned earlier is very interesting, that we had the opportunity to improve our tools over this process by having more granular and detailed energy efficiency functions. Both, I mean, especially in corporate civil, we're the front goers in this element, but we took the opportunity of modifying a bit our model as well. And this is also used in a number of impact assessments with the Commission, like the CO2 standards review currently undertaken. So it might not translate to a KPI benefit, but it translates to a knowledge benefit for the whole policy work we are doing. So yeah, those 2 points.
Excellent, thank you. And quite clearly here, yes, we've focused in this meeting on showing KPI values. What we're discussing now is the granularity behind the KPIs. So apologies if our charts don't show those numbers that you're looking for immediately because we've been presenting on KPIs, but the numbers are there. Until I get a question from Zhao, which I can't answer, then we'll see. Go ahead, please.
Also, someone has already elaborated a bit on this, on the uptake. So maybe I'll have a different question. For the first KPI, I see that the CO2 results increase for 2025. Right? There is a little increase for one of the models.
You've got good eagle eyes and you've got a negative reduction.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can you point out what is this due to? Because I have the impression that we are selling more electric cars. We are already selling some, but why it still goes bad? Is it for the energy sources?
It's a very good question, and I know it relates to the details of the modeling that are being done by Copert Civil and beyond by LeMesurier. But Yanis, do you want to maybe answer that directly online?
Yes, thank you, Simon. Yeah, if I understood correctly, the question is about this negative reduction, if we can say it like this. So it is an increase. And this is due, as we say here, to the low values in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic and activity restrictions. There was very low traffic in 2020, low activity, so very low CO2 values only for 2020 compared to the other years of the time series. So it was more than expected that in 2021, 2022, 2023 that the restrictions were not there, the CO2 would increase again. So this is why we have this here.
Then a follow-up. Can the models take this into account? Because it seems that they're extremely sensitive to outside, to outside constraints and outside conditions they're not directly relevant. So, for example, less cars on the road are not directly relevant to assess, and that's the main goal here, to assess the evolution of the work done by the partnership. So how can the models be either adapt or filter these non-relevant points?
All right, so I'll take the answer to that question on my shoulders, because that was me insisting. I did, yeah. I said, look, we have KPI values, we have boundary conditions and constraints to the KPI values. Let's show the KPI result based upon the choice of baseline, the choice of the vehicle park development up to that time. So I don't think it's any particular model effect. It's almost me as the project coordinator insisting that we do as we described in the project. We've effectively said that with that modeling technique, we've got a 0 result for 2025, but it's not an issue with any of the particular models. It's an issue with how we constrain the KPIs in the first place, to be honest.
The 2019 as a baseline had been easier.
Exactly. But we tried to be consistent because we've got this very constrained set of KPIs that we've done. So please don't read too much into it for that particular one. And it is, a very small change. Look at the bigger side of the changes going forward. And bluntly, the benefits we're going to be able to talk more about when we start measuring in different ways in LCA, and then consider the impact from there onwards. One last question, possibly, either online or in the,
just feedback. And
we go, please, go ahead.
Maybe. I don't know if we have colleagues from Klima or JSC online, but I think, and I suggest always, I think primus mover, primus mover is the basic that's normally used by the Commission. So normally, if it's possible for this project, make the reference to that, which is the aim. And then I understand that you're trying to understand how this changed with the different uses. But I think always to keep premise remover as a main reference will help a lot for us also to understand how does it link with the current methodology studies and analysis that we're doing in the different issues.
Okay, that's a good point. So the data is there. Again, you've seen the one-line charts. You can almost see that the midline is possibly the prime's tree move line. It isn't quite exactly like that, but you can get that impression. But that's why Yanis showed the individual curves as well, so you can see the changes of those. But again, we've got 3 different methods of how to assess the future. They're all as right or wrong as each other in that sense, as models are. So we have to work through it.
Can I?
Please, Thesis, go ahead. But then we must move on and give Joanna a chance to talk about the generic objectives.
I think Winter is opening up a very interesting topic. I know. However, I wanted also to relate to what Yanis just said. I consider it always, and I think this is the case that prime move is a more econometric, a higher level model that is fed with technology input from lower scale models. And this was always the case. That's why Yanis quite accurately said that the new emission factors and the new relationships that have been developed will also be used by the upcoming or running impact assessment at commissions level. And actually, this leads me, first of all, to the remark that this is very good, because these things need to be taken into account, but also to ask, is there an impact assessment going on right now for the expected, maybe internal combustion engine lift, ban lifting, which is being discussed, or is this somewhat taken into account?
A great question, Zizis, but I'm
Not necessarily the answer now.
I'm going to suggest that that's a question that we answer for lunch, because it's beyond a little bit LeMesurier, if not a lot. But it's also a question that I myself personally have and was going to raise the same sort of thing at some point or other. We've got changing conditions. How are we going to, as modelers, respond to it? But for the future, I think. Are we okay online here as well? No other questions? I can't see anything. If not, let's move on then. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your presentation. Sorry. Ilyas, please.
Yes, apologies for the late question. I followed with interest, and thank you for all this work. My question is sort of follow-up to a question on the additional benefits by to-zero work, and I was wondering to which extent these additional benefits can be broken down to the individual components, meaning that projects have worked in the improvement of energy efficiency of electric motors, of other components of energy management, recovery, and it would be very interesting to see the relative impact of each of the components towards the overall improvement in CO2 reduction. I don't know if this is possible with this approach, but in any case, that would be a very interesting output.
All right, so I'll give an immediate answer, and then I'll let Zizis or Yanis answer on half of it. The effect is there, and it's being modeled. If you look at the extent of the LeMesurier digital twin type model that we've developed, it does include componentry inside of there. So that answer is there, but again, we've not shown it explicitly because it wasn't part of the KPIs. And I must say also in the recommendations, we've said we could do more there as well, because there were not that many 2.0 component-based projects running when we ran LeMesurier. So actually the amount of input data we got for that was a little bit low as well. So there's more we could do there, but the data and the modeling technique should be able to take care of that. I don't know, Yanis, if you want to say anything more, agreeing or disagreeing with me.
I would give the floor to Professor Samaras for LeMesurier digital twin.
Thank you, Yanni. Ilya, I think your question is the right one. I think Simon gave you already a first answer. We have to look at the digital twins, but the digital twins they were trying, which are not digital twins, actually, they are simulation models. They were trying to simulate for different vehicle categories the average effects of maybe one or two or more projects that were including more than one innovation. So in principle, if one wants to be accurate in the answer is no, we cannot distinguish. However, we can go back to each individual simulation together with you if you want, in order to see what we have done and what of all those elements may be useful for your work and for the discussion.
Thank you, Jesus. And that brings up the point where I'm saying we're actually making a recommendation to go forward with it as well. And your point about digital twins is quite right. We would have loved to have had vehicle test results to correlate with the results that we've rejected. But again, that's the timing of LeMesurier, the timing of the projects, what's been going on. Any other queries, questions online? If not, I think, and here in the office, I think let's move on to work package 3. We're going to shift perspective now. We're going to go a little bit more high level, a little bit more qualitative, but you did call for this work, so we've done it. So we're trying to give you the answer.
No. Okay, I apologize in advance, but I forgot my small paper notes. I have to keep in mind a lot of.
Do I give you the click share thing or
Yes.
you? Yeah.
This one, or can
No,
I?
I mean, are you going to share it directly?
No, this is just my notes.
Okay.
Just finding the presentation. Give us a moment.
Oh, right. I do have this open.
Yeah. I'm not presenting. You are presenting. Not the pictures. If not, I'll tell you when to change slides. Okay, is it being shared?
Will be in a moment. Will be.
Oh, okay, because we're, okay, it's frozen. But I see, I see online, Andrew is sharing. Okay, great. So good morning, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Joanna Letão. I work at VDI IT. And I, together with Annika Holtz and Jörg Dubert, we have been leading the work package 3. We actually, it's building a lot on the work that has been done in work package 1 and work package 2, but it goes a bit beyond and it looks into the impact of the 2.0 on this, what we call the generic objectives, which are wider European goals. So, is it on? So can you move to the next slide? I'll just go. So next slide, please. One before. Shall I do there?
Yeah, I'm just.
So-
Maybe try your thing again. Try it now. You can sit here if you like, or just.
Is the errors. Sorry about the whole technical things. So, but these are basically just a reminder of what were the objectives of the work package 3 and just an overview. This is a bit complex, but it's just an overview. I wanted to have that on the presentation also later for the record of different work and the different steps that was carried out on this work package. So we had to first look and understand really what are these generic objectives, how they are framed in terms of relevant EU policy, have a definition that aligns with the 2.0 actually strategy goals, and how this kind of relates really to the 2.0 approach. We had then to identify the already existing KPIs of the 2.0, how that is, which ones are relevant for the different generic objectives. And then we had to go into determining like the baselines to have like a comparison and understanding what actually impact can be done on the longer term. Then on a different way, we also know these different generic objectives. So carbon neutrality, air quality, technology leadership, economic growth, competitiveness, and circular economy, they are interlinked. We also looked into the interactions between those to understand also not only the synergies, the trade-offs, and the rebound effects. And the last step was basically putting all this together and also providing like a qualitative overview of what is the impact and what is the possible impact of 2.0 into these different ones. So today I'm actually going to focus on this. More information is available in all of the different deliverables, and here's what you see this distribution. So I'm going to start providing an overview of the results of the work package 3. So this is kind of more the new assessment. This part is actually like from the very early stage of the project, when the questionnaire that was put out for work package 1, we also asked the projects to do a bit of a self-assessment of how they contribute to the different generic objectives, to each one of these aspects. And this actually, this question relies a lot on, as I said, self-assessment, and may be sensitive to a bit of positive and optimistic bias, so to call, from the projects themselves, but at least it has raised already the awareness within the projects that it is important also to consider these wider goals. We did see a lot of a good positive indication there that a lot of the projects are looking, are at least aiming at contributing to the different generic objectives. So this was an interesting result, but then we started realizing when looking into the details that we had not actually collected evidence of how this contribution is done. So in parallel, like a supporting qualitative assessment was done in the background later on after we carried out with our work in terms of proposed assessment. So first step, so this is a two-step assessment. So in the first step, we basically, within the project, within the experts of each of these generic objectives, we looked into the KPIs and we tried to understand how relevant are the 2.0 KPIs to the generic objectives. And here you see the example of what is the relevance in terms of the generic, the GO KPIs and the SO KPIs. And you see that actually most of them, they are relevant or they also are very relevant. So the majority you see here on the tables on the left side, highlighting where the majority lay. So I realize that table's a little old and wrong. On the second step, we looked into scoring, picking up the work that was done from work package 1, all the assessment that was done in terms of the KPIs, and tried to link that assessment with this kind of identification of relevance of KPIs. So basically by developing a qualitative score, let's just keep in mind, this is about qualitative assessment and having just a score to look into how, by knowing which KPIs are relevant to the different generic objectives, how can we actually look also into understanding how the KPIs have been achieved. So in one case, we looked at the number of projects that are contributing to the KPIs and how full they are contributing, because if you remember from work package 1, there was the full contribution or the partial contribution or the non-contribution at all. So basically just looking at that, it provides an overview of how we are performing and how 2.0 can also, looking at the possibility how 2.0 can also contribute to these different generic objectives. And here I provide like an example of how it performs in terms of the SOs. So what we see here, it's not like, we don't see like very strong, contribution, but that is basically derived from the number of projects that are contributing to each of the KPIs. It's just that this is not saying that 2.0 is performing bad or anything. It just gives you an overview that, okay, there are some KPIs where there are more or less projects contributing. So it does not, it's not necessarily a bad result. So let's keep in mind that. On the other hand, we actually look at the progress of achieving the KPIs, right? So we had seen also in work package 1 and from the results of work package 2, that they looked at like how is 2.0 performing in terms of achieving. And there we see that there is already very matured achievement of the 2.0 KPIs. And if those are relevant for the different generic objectives, as you see here, divide by each of them, it actually means that actually there is a contribution there happening and there is a possibility there for proceeding. So we also looked, as I said, into the interactions. I am not going to go into detail in all of this. This is available in our deliverable 3.3. We went through different steps among us. We had discussed and understand of like how exactly the synergies are, what are the trade-offs and the rebounds. We have identified those in a matrix, in a pairwise matrix relation. And we actually came up with very nice visualization examples that I'm showing you. And later on, we did kind of a model cross-check, which was a qualitative cross-check from the model results that were within the consortium, like how actually these interactions are also identified. We see some dominant synergies. We also identified some trade-offs and some rebound effects were in there. As I said, this study, it's also a very long and intense analysis of how these all generic objectives interact, and I would not have the time to go into detail today. That would be a full presentation on itself. I just wanted to highlight that this was also done, and the models also were very useful here to confirm some of the synergies and the trade-offs and see some of the patterns that are there. And in the other way, we came up with very interesting and nice, beautiful lotus flowers that show how this whole complex mapping, and we see in green some synergies between each of them, some trade-offs, and some rebound risks that are in there. And the overall map, it's very complex, as I said. But basically, what is the point of this? It's to understand that policy coordination is important. This is something we know. It's beyond just the decarbonization itself. It's also looking at the side effects that can happen, and if we want to align that with the circular economy and having like a technology boost into the market, reflected into the market. And this is also something that it's important to look into the side, and also, of course, the costs linked to that. So on that point, then knowing what is coming up, I would like to go now into detail, or in more detail, of the results from the generic objectives from each of those. Just a reminder that each generic objective, each of the partners have done very different approaches here. Some of them were possible to be done in a more quantitative way, others in a qualitative way. Some of them, they actually already have data they can use. Some of us actually have used data from a second survey. Ian is also going to present some of the new results there that we have. So it's very different approaches, but bear with me. In terms of carbon neutrality, this assessment that was carried out here builds strongly also on the work that was done in work package 2. It goes through the different KPIs that are already available in 2.0. That is an obvious one. Carbon neutrality is also a strong focus of the 2.0. And the results basically underscore the transformative impact of these projects, of the 2.0 projects, and how we are, how the 2.0 is achieving and contributing to a CO2 reduction. There, it's not a surprise, but this is just showing how, shown by a further analysis of the results available within the LeMesurier project, how this is actually being achieved. In terms of the air quality, this assessment was strongly based more on the Coppard and Siebel model, and we do see, as expected, a strong reduction from the NOx and the PM exhaust for all different categories. And as expected here, the part to take into account is maybe more what is coming up now with this transformation of the fleet in terms of non-exhaust. This is a topic that is being highlighted in different spheres. And here is also that there might be a slight impact there at the beginning with an increase, but actually a reduction is foreseen on the long term. And the next step that was also taken was actually pick up a TM5 fast source receptor model. This is a scenario assessment model, and it provides an overview of actually what this air quality reduction might have in terms of health impact and in terms of reduced mortalities. So that was also again confirmed and provides a bit of a magnitude of what is possible to achieve if the 2.0 projects then have this impact on actually of the real world and the fleet. Ian.
Okay, thank you very much. A little amendment to the title here.
Sorry,
it should actually say self-assessment of technology leadership and competitiveness, and especially the VDI, VDIT in Berlin, because these activities were not possible alone. We had to work together. Okay, this is really, really important aspect. So keep that in mind. And the big question is technology leadership. We can't talk about technology leadership without talking about competitiveness. The reason is quite simple. Why are we doing it? Why are we doing technology? It's to be competitive. We're not doing technology just to do technology. So we decided that the simple approach to ask the question, are you contributing, was not sufficient. They can say, yeah, we're contributing, but so what? Yeah. So going to the next slide. So we went to the projects. We decided we had to resurvey the projects. So it was at the second or third survey. So we realized we can't be very long in the survey. We can't survey all the projects because it's really, really important here is that we make sure the projects have something to report on. So they had to be nearly finished. So when you saw the diagram from Simon before, we only had 16 projects that were getting close to the end, so 80% finished. Because at the beginning, you don't have results yet to evaluate. We asked them a quite simple question, tell us about your innovations. Tell us about some of your details, what you're producing as results here, and tell us a little bit about them, but remain compliant. Don't tell us your secrets. Okay, this is really, really important. Don't tell us your secrets. It has to be at an RTR level. Okay, so, and then we also had to have the philosophy of we're not the project police. We're not checking your results. We just want to give you an approach, methodology for doing the self-assessment. Where are we in terms of competitiveness? Okay, so they described the innovations briefly, specifically enough so that we have an impression. What is it? And it has to be detailed. It has to be enough detail to get an idea. Okay, what's the innovation here? I won't go into any of those details, but I will tell you that we are evaluating here, and we have very simple questions that required a lot of intelligence to derive. And this is where the work with the VDI team in Berlin was quite beneficial because going through these questions together really helped us to focus the questions. And they're quite simple. It's basically, what is the customer benefit? We're not specifying who the customer is, or the benefit that needs to be specified, the willingness to pay, okay, and the business case. If you want to understand willingness to pay, this is willingness to pay. Stefan, I have it in my hand here. This is willingness to pay. How much does this make the cost to make? $200? How much do people pay for it? 600? Yeah, yeah. Okay, this is just an example. It's a different market, but it's an example of what's willingness to pay. Okay, and we also had to ask them a question: do you have a business case? We're not checking the business case. We're just asking, do you have one? Have you made some thoughts about it? Is it validated? Do you have an idea where you're going with this? It's a mindset. I've had some feedback from some of the people that responded, and they said, these are really good questions. These are really important questions. The second aspect we have to consider is, if you have a good idea, can you protect that good idea? So if you're one of 100 competitors, you're going to have a hard time being competitive. But if you're one of 3, it's much easier. So you have some things like, for example, patents, you have capabilities, and you have the entry barriers, the entry hurdles, investment needs, for example. Okay, so to answer the questions, I'm going to skip this slide just to go straight to the results. We got back from the projects, we got only 14 responded. Of the 14, not everybody completed the complete survey, but we got enough replies that from the 58 potential innovations, we had 42, I think, or no, 28, sorry, 28. So 40 potential and 28. This is the result. So on the x-axis, we have what we call the competitiveness indicator index. Okay, so the further you are to the right, the more chance you have of being competitive with that innovation. And on the y-axis,
Global scale.
on a global scale. This is a global scale, okay? And what's very, very important here is to keep in mind, first of all, we're not exposing which projects, which innovations. We're going to keep that a secret. But we realized we had to classify them to get a better understanding, get a better feeling. And that's why we classified them according to the clusters. So this information is quite valuable for the partnership to see where we are, also from the cluster point of view, but it's also quite valuable for the projects to see where are we. It's their own benchmark. They can now evaluate where they are on a global scale. On the y-axis, we have the potential to protect your idea. So the higher you are, the better protection capabilities you have for your idea. So the idea is that if you have a bubble that's far to the right, very large in terms of technology leadership, and high up, you have a very good idea, and this would be very beneficial for European competitiveness. So I'll go to the last slide, just in the summary.
So, sorry,
Yes.
3 clusters you're showing here, right?
It just turned out that way, Sissis,
Okay.
because those are the 3 clusters that started early. So we have
Alphato, and
PNG. And the more feedback I get from different people about who answered the survey, under what philosophy, the more positive I am about these are really actually quite plausible. And they also give them a possibility to go back because it's traceable. They can go back and see, okay, this is how I answered the question. This is where I need to put more effort in the future. So it gives us a stronger transparency into the projects, how the projects are performing without exposing secrets, but it also gives them a possibility to improve their capabilities.
So each bubble is a project?
It's innovation from the project. So when
Vito, there is only 2 innovations.
No.
You have 2 bubbles.
Evolve is the orange and we can.
But there are 2 bubbles, I see. So what is the meaning of having 2 bubbles?
There are more than 2 bubbles. Aveto is blue, so there are
Okay.
6 bubbles.
Each bubble is an individual project.
The color is the
some are hidden behind. Some are hidden behind.
Some bubbles are piled on each other.
No, I understand.
If it's a blue bubble behind something, you can't see it then, okay, for example. Okay.
I got it.
There's something like a solar eclipse here with the green and red.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also have there like a blue one. I mean,
Yeah, there is a blue here. That's
We have to continue going. Please. Now we're standing between everybody here and lunch.
The coloring would have been.
But it does give us now a new methodology, a new approach that we are able to get a better insight into how the projects are performing, their own performance as well. The questions can be improved in the future. And we took 3 questions as a basis. That's the minimum. I would never suggest going over five questions, for example, because then you don't see anything, things moving around. But I think this is really a quite robust approach to evaluating the projects and their innovations. So thank you. Any questions? Or I don't know if we saved the questions for the end.
yes, I guess, because there's still, I don't know.
You've got to get through this.
Yeah.
Let me take my willingness to pay back.
Yeah, because there's still quite a bit there to
This
go.
is lots of new stuff. So at least you need to give people a chance to hear it. Maybe if we think about it over lunch, but
Yeah. So because the next one is actually we also, so as Ian said, is like that approach already provides quite a view on also the European competitiveness contribution and possible contribution on the future, right? On the other hand, we also had from the European competitiveness side, we had like a complementary approach to what was just presented, but that one would have more a strong market focus. And what it was developed, it builds on 4 different pillars. And this actually turns out to be very aligned with also the priorities and strategies and aspects that were also identified in other partnerships, like it's, for example, the CCAM one. So it draws a lot on the competitiveness compass and the points highlighted strategically there. It takes a lot on not only the technology, but also the market potential, the strategical resilience, and the seamless integration in the real world, so to say. I mean, looks also, so integration of implementation rather, and then it takes a lot on the societal impact as well when you look, for example, as the presence of skilled workforce that is driven by the projects and how this is being changed. So the 4 pillars are listed here. And the assessment is basically done on based on a scoring system as well for each of these 4 dimensions that I mentioned before. the way it was done is that it's based on the survey that Ian just mentioned. So there was different questions in there that were drawing and where we were collecting information. And on the other hand, we're also combining that actually with the KPI assessment that was previously done by the other work packages. So it's a combination of data that was already there and additional data that we needed to collect because, of course, as we know, the generic objectives and particular competitiveness, it's not necessarily something that it's already reflecting in the existing KPIs. So basically, so this assessment is, as I said, just complementary. The next one is also provides an overview of how 2.0 can contribute the whole portfolio. Again, we are not looking at particular projects in like particular individual projects. We're looking at the portfolio itself. And how that collectively contributes to European competitiveness. And from the results of the survey, we can come up with one visualization of the different scorings for these 4 different pillars. And again, it's just important to remind that this survey was done on only 14 projects. So again, this is just the initial results. It's just a possibility of how we can look. In any case, this shows maybe a bit of lagging behind in terms of market potential, but this again, it just reflects on how the KPIs already exist in there in terms of 2.0 and what was used. And maybe this was not so much in the radar of the project. So this is a low-hanging fruit of can include, but the sample shows already high and good contributions to technology maturity and also societal impact. What else did I add in there? Yeah, it's just important not to highlight that this is just an integration of the KPI alignment and also the survey questions. And another aspect that it's important to remember is that, okay, in the KPIs before, we had seen that some projects might not be contributing to some of the KPIs. And therefore, it's also important to understand that, okay, how are we going to interpret this? Is this partial contribution, this full contribution? Sure, some of them are not thinking they are contributing now, but maybe a bit more guidance to really understand or how they can contribute to that KPI, because that's going to reflect on the score and result. So if we do have a non-contribution at some point, it might be a 0, but we also don't expect that all projects contribute to all KPIs. So the weighting and the further development of the strategy in the future might be important, but the first results already show like good potential of 2.0 contributing on the different pillars. In terms of the economic growth, very different approach. So this approach built also a lot on the work done in Work Package 1. There's these 6 pillars that was derived based on the existing projects, and they show the key drivers for the economic growth and how this is aligned with the 2.0. On the other hand, Shruti, that is also here, again, this is work done for very different partners of the project. This does not lie all on me. So Shruti also picked up on the survey results, and she also started looking at how these data that is already there and how can also these show a contribution of 2.0 to economic growth through different creation of jobs, through creation of different jobs and different contribution of the skill market in terms of the mobility sector. So again, these are preliminary results. This is based on the pool of projects that we surveyed. It is not reflecting the full project and the full pool of projects that are already in the 2.0. And then we also found that, for example, 2.0 is fostering clean mobility and digital services, and on the long term, I guess, and also circular economy practices, which on the long term will have an impact on economic growth. And this is also then what was done. So looking at the different drivers, looking at what it's already there, it was important to understand, okay, what are the inputs, what are the enablers or the drivers coming from the 2.0 projects, and how these can be reflected on relevant aspects, key variables, so to say, key metrics actually for economic growth, and how we can see an evolution from the present time into the future. So this sort of framework looks very much on what is the data that is already there, and looking at like a narrative of how 2.0 can look into, can contribute to economic growth, and that impact is actually also seen there. So we do see that's the conclusion. So the 2.0 is contributing indirectly to economic growth, but it is there on the long term, and it's expected to provide mobility system costs and new business models. This is just a summary of the conclusions from the economic growth. I left it there more for the record. In terms of circular economy, the approach was very different. Yeah. So we also have TILO online, if I recall. These are the defining elements for the circular economy that had been identified from the very beginning. And also like how it interacts with the 2.0 objectives. In terms of the 2.0 implementation, what was identified is that this is not yet a strong aspect that is currently in the ongoing projects in the portfolio, and therefore there's not much of the results yet available, but still what it's possible to do is to start looking at the framework in the future and how can this be assessed. And in that case, what was proposed now from the LeMesurier, in building also on the results from the Transcendentals LCA project, is actually basically what's being proposed here is different KPIs, 5 different KPIs, sorry, that on the future can be assessed, and also a proposal of what sort of data can be used there to determine these KPIs, and how in the future 2.0 can actually go back, pick up on this data, and look into exactly how the contribution to circular economy can be done. There is just the one aspect that the current KPIs do have some aspect of the LCA already included in there, but again, there's just not results just yet, and there is possibility to collect further information. So these are basically the conclusions for the moment. There's lack of data to actually have like a solid assessment, but for future assessments, this can be encouraged, and 2.0 can have as possible contribution to circular economy as well. So we see the potential there. So I've navigated through a lot of different topics, and I think what I want to take the message that I want you to take is that the work package 3 did very different assessments. And I try to summarize that here. Some of them are quantitative, some of them are qualitative. Some look into short term, some look into more long term. Some are based on existing models, some are based on existing KPIs. Others are looking into like additional survey data that was collected later on from additional aspects. Some of the frameworks we're proposing here are still very new to that. Some are very innovative, as we just heard from Ian, and have a potential to actually have a long-term impact on the assessment of 2.0 when that is decided that it's not only about what is already strategically defined there, but also how 2.0 can contribute to these generic objectives. And overall, our results say that yes, building also not only on the work package 1, but work package 2 results, the 2.0 partnerships is actually performing well in terms of these generic objectives. To maximize the long-term impact, maybe we want to look into aligning the KPIs to translate that technical success into market success, and looking also at the circular economy outcomes. As we said before, Ian highlighted that it's like not all projects were expected to contribute from the calls to contribute to all the KPIs, and a bit of direction there and a bit of guidance there if priorities become also these generic objectives can be achieved in the future. So it's a low-hanging fruit. It can be improved, but it's actually already performing well. Yeah, basically that's the presentation from my side.
Thank you, Joanne.
Those are just the fact sheets that we currently have proposed for the work package 3. But yeah, that was from sorry.
So just like you have KPI sheets where we've actually done the measurement, so we're drafting ideas as to how a generic objective KPI sheet for each of the 6 different generic objectives could look like. But again, it's quite important. These are 6 very different topics. I hope that's come through. Different levels of thoughts and different levels of progress, but actually all feeding into something such as the future automotive partnerships or these sorts of things. We have to think about that a bit going forward. I realise we've got lunch coming up now, so I think probably people's priorities are changing. But we've got at least one question here. Please, Guido.
Not really a question, just maybe a comment. Thanks again. I understand how difficult it is also to do this kind of analysis in all these different areas, trying to measure to assess the impact. I was hoping, honestly, in fact, this is all my hope at the beginning, for something more quantitative. So really quantification, because it would be nice to work on the numbers. So coming from the project and extract some real data and figures. I understand that mostly is done by self-assessment, so by each project, right, to tell from their point of view how they impact, how it will impact. I don't know how feasible it is to enter into more quantitative number and figures extracted from the project, but I think could be useful in the future. And in any case, the fact sheet and the document that you're producing, try to be really clear on how this has been extracted, not to create too many expectations by the people reading it.
Good point. I think. And a very short comment, if I may. So a very short comment.
Microphone, Jean-Charles, and then we'll
hear
you.
Okay, first I would like to say that I'm very impressed at what was done in these 2 years, knowing that at the start,